Welcome to the deep dive. This is where we take a stack of sources, dig in, and pull out those fascinating bits, the crucial context, so you get the real picture fast.
Yes, skipping the noise, getting straight to the core ideas.
Exactly. And today we're diving into something really fundamental to Greek mythology, but also, well, honestly, pretty weird. The birth stories of some major gods.
Oh, definitely weird. We've been digging into places like Theoi Project and other sources on these origin myths, and figures like Zeus, Athena, Hephaestus. Their arrivals are, let's just say, unconventional.
Unconventional is putting it mildly. We're talking about births that completely defy, biology as we know it.
Right, not your standard origin story. Think rebellion, splitting headaches, and pure maternal will. Zeus escaping being eaten, Athena popping out of a forehead.
And Hephaestus conceived by Hera alone and then just tossed aside.
Exactly.
So our mission here is to unpack these strange beginnings, because they're more than just bizarre stories, aren't they?
Absolutely. They're foundational. They really define the gods themselves and tell us a lot about how the ancient Greeks saw the world, power, fate, all of it.
Okay, let's get into it. Where should we start? Zeus.
Makes sense. Start at the top with the eventual king of the gods, but not his reign. We need to start with the chaos around his birth.
Right, and that chaos really starts with his father, Cronus, the Titan ruler.
Yeah.
He had a serious issue.
A huge one. Deep paranoia, really. There was this prophecy, you see, that warned him one of his own children would overthrow him.
Just like he'd overthrown his father, Uranus, that pattern.
Precisely. And that fear just completely consumed him.
Leading him to do something drastic.
Yeah, drastic doesn't quite cover it. As each of his children with Rhea was born, Hestia, Demeter, Hera, Hades, Poseidon, he just swallowed them whole.
Swallowed them, just like that, to try and stop the prophecy.
That was the plan.
Yeah.
A brutal way to try and cheat fate. Horrifying, really.
Absolutely. But Rhea, Zeus's mother, she'd had enough by the time Zeus came along.
She had. She was determined her youngest wouldn't suffer the same fate. Sources like Theoi mention she got help, actually, from her own parents, Gaia and Uranus. They helped her plot.
So what was the plan?
Deception. Clever and simple, really. When Zeus was born, instead of handing the baby over to Cronus, she wrapped up a big stone in swaddling clothes.
A stone? And Cronus fell for it.
He did. The myths say he took the bundle and swallowed it down, thinking it was Zeus. No questions asked, apparently.
Wow. Okay, so the real Zeus was safe.
Yes. This trick allowed Rhea to whisk the actual baby Zeus away, to hide him far from Cronus.
So he wasn't raised among the gods on Olympus?
Not at all. He spent his whole childhood in secret, hidden away in a cave, usually said to be on the island of Crete.
Their Ida sometimes.
Those are the common locations mentioned, yes. The key thing is the secrecy, the isolation from his father.
And he had some unusual caretakers there, not just Rhea.
Right. He was nursed by Amalthea. Sometimes she's described as a goat, sometimes as a nymph. Depends on the version you read.
Goat nursemaid, okay.
Yeah. And crucially, there were the Cretes. These were warrior-like figures, attendants. Their job was incredibly specific.
Which was?
To make noise. Constant, loud noise. They performed these war dances, clashing their spears against their shields, shouting.
To drown out baby Zeus's crying so Cronus wouldn't hear him.
Exactly. It shows just how real the danger was. Even the sound of a baby could have given him away. The Cretes dancing wasn't just ceremonial, it was active concealment. A sound barrier.
And that intense protection, that hidden upbringing, it wasn't just about keeping him alive, was it?
No, it was formative. It let him grow strong, grow into his power, completely separate from his father's tyranny and paranoia.
Ready to eventually emerge and challenge him.
Precisely. Once he reached maturity, Zeus came out of hiding. And with some help, sometimes Metis, sometimes Gaia is credited, he confronted Cronus.
And forced him to. Well, reverse the swallowing process.
He did. Cronus was forced to regurgitate all the children he'd swallowed, starting, ironically, with that stone Rhea gave him.
Imagine that family reunion. Your siblings coughed up because of you.
Yeah, quite the image. And that act, that's what kicked off the huge war, the Titanomachy, Olympians versus Titans.
And Zeus had some tricks up his sleeve, allies Cronus had locked away.
Yes, during the war, he freed the Cyclops, the one-eyed giants, mastersmiths. Cronus had imprisoned them.
And they were grateful, I assume.
Very. They forged his ultimate weapons, the lightning bolts, his iconic symbols of power. He also freed the Hecatoncheires, the 100-handed giants. Their strength was immense in battle.
So escaping being eaten, the secret childhood, freeing these powerful allies, it all builds up to his eventual victory.
It really does. His whole origin is about defiance. Defying tyranny, defying fate itself through cleverness, through finding strength where it wasn't expected. He literally came from inside his father's belly to seize power, a cosmic reset.
Okay, that is one wild origin, but maybe. Maybe not the wildest we're covering today.
Possibly not. If you think escaping your father's stomach is strange, let's talk about Athena.
Goddess of wisdom, warfare, crafts.
And born from arguably the most unexpected place imaginable, Zeus's head.
Right, straight out of his head. How does that myth even work?
Well, it starts with Zeus's first wife, Metis. Her name literally means wisdom or cunning. Very appropriate.
Okay.
Metis gets pregnant with Athena.
Ah.
So far, so, normal for gods.
But there's always a but with these stories, isn't there?
Always a prophecy. Zeus learns that Metis is destined to bear 2 children. First, a daughter incredibly wise and powerful, that's Athena. But then, she'd bear a son.
Uh-oh. Let me guess. A son destined to overthrow Zeus.
You got it. The same pattern, the cycle of sons overthrowing fathers. Zeus had done it to Cronus, Cronus to Uranus. Zeus was determined not to let it happen to him.
So what does he do? He can't exactly swallow the baby after it's born if the prophecy involves a future son.
No, his solution was preventative and eerily familiar. He swallowed Metis herself, whole.
He swallowed his pregnant wife?
Yep. A chilling echo of Cronus. But maybe with a slightly different spin. Some interpretations suggest that since the Greeks sometimes linked thought to the belly, or insides, by swallowing Metis, wisdom incarnate, Zeus wasn't just neutralizing the threat. He was absorbing her qualities.
So he literally consumed wisdom to become wiser and to stop the prophecy. That's layers upon layers.
It is. But swallowing a goddess, especially one representing intellect, didn't exactly sit well, literally.
I can imagine. What happened?
After some time, Zeus started suffering from the most splitting headache imaginable. Just unbearable, building pressure inside his skull.
Okay, I think I know where this is going. The axe.
The axe. The pain got so bad he called for help. Often it's Hephaestus, the divine smith, who gets the call. Sometimes Prometheus,
Tasked with...
splitting Zeus's head open with an axe to relieve the pressure.
You just can't make this stuff up. An axe to the head of the king of the gods.
And from that wound, from Zeus's own head, sprang Athena.
Not a baby, though, right?
No. Fully grown. Fully armed. Helmet, shield, spear, the works. And letting out this mighty war cry that, echoed through the heavens and the earth.
Wow, just wow. Born fully formed, battle-ready, from pure thought, essentially. What does that say about her?
So much. Coming directly from Zeus's head, the source of intellect, bypassing a traditional birth, she embodies pure wisdom, strategy, rational thought. Untainted, you might say.
Directly linked to Zeus's authority.
Absolutely. And the full armor. It shows she's inherently a goddess of just warfare, of strategy, of protection. It's not something she learned, it's who she is from moment one.
And it neatly sidesteps the prophecy, doesn't it? She's a daughter, not the feared son.
Exactly. It makes her non-threatening to Zeus's rule. In fact, it reinforces it. She becomes his favorite, his most trusted advisor, an extension of his own mind, almost.
Her origin basically guarantees her unique power and status on Olympus.
It really does. And, the whole idea of wisdom emerging from a male head, it probably reflects some ancient Greek ideas about intellect, reason, maybe the importance they placed on the male role in generating significant brain children.
Okay, from swallowed survival to cranial eruption. Yeah, these are definitely not predictable births.
And we have one more major figure with an equally unique, though perhaps more tragic, beginning.
Let's turn to Hephaestus, the craftsman god, the divine blacksmith.
Right. And his story is unique because it involves only one parent. Hera.
Zeus's wife. But Zeus wasn't involved in Hephaestus's conception.
That's the dominant version of the myth, yes.
Yeah.
Hera conceived him alone, parthenogenetically.
Why? What was her motivation?
Well, the stories often frame it as an act of spite, or jealousy, maybe. Especially after Zeus produced Athena all by himself from his head, Hera wanted to prove she could do it too. Create life, create a god independently.
Like a divine competition, asserting her own power against Zeus's display.
Kind of seems that way, doesn't it? A direct manifestation of her independent will.
But it didn't quite go as planned, did it? The birth itself had issues.
Major issues.
Yeah.
Unlike the divine perfection usually expected, Hephaestus was born imperfect. He had a physical deformity. He was lame or had crippled legs. Weak. Anyway.
And Hera, who conceived him alone to prove her power. How did she react to this imperfection?
Brutally. Utterly without compassion. The myths say she was horrified, maybe ashamed, by his appearance, and her immediate reaction was to throw him off Mount Olympus.
She threw her own newborn son off a mountain because he wasn't perfect.
Yes, just cast him out. It's a shocking moment. Really speaks volumes about the harsh, maybe superficial standards of beauty and perfection among the gods, even within family.
So a traumatic start doesn't even begin to cover it? Did he survive the fall?
He did. Miraculously, maybe. He fell for a long time, eventually landing in the sea, the ocean.
And someone found him.
Yes, he was rescued and cared for by sea goddesses. Thetis, who later becomes Achilles' mother, interestingly, and Eurynome. They raised him in secret, in an underwater grotto.
So another god raised away from Olympus, in hiding almost.
Exactly. And like Zeus, he eventually returned. But not through, conquest or dramatic birth. He earned his way back.
Through his skill.
Through his unparalleled skill. He became the master craftsman, the divine blacksmith. His abilities were just indispensable to the other gods. He made everything.
Like what kind of things did he forge?
Oh, incredible things. Zeus's thunderbolts, maybe refining the ones the Cyclops gave him. Achilles' god-tier armor. The Aegis shield that Zeus and Athena used. Beautiful thrones for the Olympians. Intricate jewelry. His workshop, often said to be under volcanoes like Etna or on the island of Lemnos, linked him to this raw, creative power of fire and earth.
So his craft became his power, his ticket back in.
Absolutely. He was eventually accepted back, even married goddesses like Aphrodite in some myths, or Aglaia, one of the Charites or Graces. It shows his integration, despite the initial rejection, despite his physical difference.
His story feels so different. It's about resilience, isn't it? Overcoming that initial trauma and rejection through sheer talent and hard work.
It really is. It fundamentally challenges the idea that divine worth comes only from lineage or physical perfection. Hephaestus finds his power, his indispensability, through his craft, his ingenuity. It's a story about strength found in unexpected places, in skill, despite the odds.
So, okay, we have these three incredibly strange beginnings. Zeus escaping Cronus's belly.
Athena bursting fully armed from Zeus's head.
And Hephaestus, born of Hera alone, rejected, but finding power in his forge. When you put them together,
You really see how these aren't just weird random details. Each birth story is deeply fundamentally tied to who that god is. Their core identity, their powers, their role on Olympus, their key relationships, especially with Zeus and Hera.
Zeus's birth sets him up as the ultimate survivor, the cycle breaker, the one who defies fate through cunning and force.
Athena's birth from Zeus's mind makes her wisdom intrinsically linked to his authority. She's strategy incarnate, his most trusted, non-threatening intellectual powerhouse.
And Hephaestus. His origin is all about power derived from skill, from resilience, from overcoming adversity and rejection. A different kind of divine validation.
Exactly. They show different paths to power in the Greek cosmos. Conquest born from desperation, inherited intellectual authority, and earned essentialness through craft and resilience.
It really makes you think about the ancient Greek worldview embedded in these myths. What does it signify that the king of gods had such a precarious start? Or that wisdom sprang fully formed from the male mind? Or that the master creator was initially rejected for his looks?
Right. What do these bizarre origins tell us about their conceptions of fate versus free will, the value of intellect versus physical perfection, the sources of power, the role of jealousy or resilience? It's a powerful reminder that these myths weren't just entertainment. They were exploring the very nature of power, destiny, and the complex forces that shape the world. Leaves you wondering how much they believe the way something begins truly defines.